Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the TSMU Q&A series. So glad to be here this evening. I'm your host, Emily Kroll. I'm the Esports and Influencer Marketing Manager over at Logitech. And today we are joined by a very, very special guest who is an old friend of mine at this point, Josiah Nuzum. Josiah, how's it going?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm going to let everyone know how to submit their questions, and then we'll get Josiah to give us a really detailed intro. So everyone, for this Q&A, we'll be pulling questions from our TSMU Discord. So if you have a question for Josiah, head to discord.gg/TSMU and ask your question in the Q&A questions channel. All right, so while people load their questions in, Josiah, why don't you let us know a bit about yourself and what you do in your role as the Esports and Gaming Community Marketing Manager over at Intel?
Yeah. Yeah, I work at Intel. Personal stuff, like I live in Oregon. So I'm in the Northwest where it likes to rain a lot. When I'm not working, I'm gaming or I'm like just now getting into woodworking, at least trying to. We'll see how that goes. Um, yeah, work stuff. I've been at Intel for 7 years, coming up on that. Bunch of different roles, all marketing, but it's been either like on the consumer side of the house, on the sports technology side of the house, which was kind of a niche part of Intel's business, and then been on gaming for the last 2-ish years, something like that. Yeah. And then did some Twitch streaming on the side, still do it every now and then. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Love to hear it. Well, I'm excited to dig deep with you this evening, Josiah, and learn more about your role at Intel and possibly even some previous roles, and hear all of your amazing advice on how people can follow your footsteps, really, on getting into the gaming industry.
Do it.
Cool. So that leads us into our first question, really, which is how did you get your start in gaming? And I want to expand that even. How did you get your start at Intel?
Yeah. Gaming, I mean, like just in general is a passion point. Like been playing it since I don't even know. I have my N64 behind me actually, which was the first console I played on. So I've been gaming all my life. Never thought it could be a job. There's no way I thought it was going to be a job. Um, but how I kind of got into both Intel and gaming was going to school. I was originally from Southern California, moved to Oregon for school in 2012, and then just kind of found my way into an internship that we can kind of get into later, but found my way into an internship at Intel, was able to kind of make some connections there, turn it into a full-time job. And then once I got into Intel, they asked me what I was interested in doing, and I said I cared about sports and gaming. And I kind of like, especially on the sports side, got laughed at a little bit of like, you're in the wrong place. And then gaming was and still is such kind of a small team within Intel. It was like, all right, well, good luck. So yeah, I mean, like I said, I've been here for 7 years. It took me 5 of those to kind of work my way into gaming. So yeah,
Awesome. Well, we know if and when Intel creates any kind of a sports marketing division, we know the guy to call.
they
Sounds
had
like.
one for a bit. I did get to work in it, surprisingly enough. But yeah,
Hey, that's cool. Well, maybe we'll get to chat some more about that this
yeah.
afternoon. Sweet. What is your background in?
I mean, like professionally, background is marketing. I have a marketing degree. I Intel's been really my only like professional company that I've worked for. I came right out of college, but did some kind of marketing throughout college as kind of one-off projects to build up some experience. But yeah, marketing is the background. Other than that, before that, my jobs were like construction, landscaping,
Okay.
car washes, and I worked at like Sports Authority. That's my background.
Nice, nice. A wholesome journey. I can
Yes.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, what made you want to go to school for marketing?
I had no idea what I wanted to go to school for. I actually went to when I first went to college, I went with a theater degree, funny enough.
Hey, okay.
I did some theater in like high school towards the end after doing some sports, and found out that you could get scholarships for that, and just tried for it and got a scholarship, and that's how that's how I started going to school. And then quickly realized within about 1 week that I had no desire to do theater anymore, and thought, okay, well, what else could I try and do? And honestly, the thing that attracted me about marketing was like storytelling. I always enjoyed like the art of storytelling. I thought, hey, I feel like I might be able to do that in a business sense. Like that felt like maybe a way I could apply myself. So yeah, that's how I got into marketing.
Awesome. I love to hear that. I always like to hear what made people interested in their field in the first place. Um, Rip to the theater background. My goodness, but I'm glad that you ended up here because then we got the opportunity to work
Yeah,
together and look at this. We're
yeah,
reconnected now on
right.
TSMU. So, how did you get your first job in the industry? And was that first job was at Intel, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
it was first job was an internship. I had a teacher at my university who was like adjunct, and he was working at Intel at the time. And I had absolutely zero concept of who Intel was, why I would really care. But I thought, hey, this is a company, and I could try and network to get into that. And first, like, I loved this teacher. He was great. We had a good relationship. And then I went up and asked, like, hey, man, like, what are opportunities within Intel for like internships? And he was like, yeah, there's definitely some. He's like, well, what experience do you have? And I was a sophomore, I think, at the time in college, and did not have an ounce of marketing experience. And I was like, oh crap, like I actually need to get some experience outside of my construction, that probably is not going to apply very well. Um, and so, yeah, like I literally took that advice of like, okay, I need to get my resume together. And I mean, you go look at every entry level job and they all want, 5 to 20 years of experience for that entry level job. So
Precisely.
yeah, so I started like trying to find like marketing work. So there was some of our classes enabled us to like get access to some local businesses to do some marketing for them. I realized that we had like student government and they were hiring for some marketing roles. I mean, it was as simple as like, they had funding for like school dances and like club funding and things like that. And I was like, okay, like that's an opportunity to try and get some experience. So I did that for like 2.5 years, all the way up until I pretty much graduated. But that was kind of the foundation in which I went and got my Intel internship. I said, hey, look, I've done this, I've managed this budget, I've done XYZ things. Like, give me a chance. So got the internship, and then turned it into a full-time job. I actually got into what is called the Sales and Marketing Rotation Program, which is like a 2-year program at Intel where you get to try out 4 different jobs at 4 different teams. And then at the end, you basically like try and find a job. You're somewhat guaranteed, like you go through the program, you're going to get a job. You get a chance to pick and choose different roles that you want to try out. So it was helpful in getting like a rounded experience very quickly. So yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And throughout my experience at Lenovo and working very closely with Intel, I saw a lot of success with interns being brought into full-time roles
yeah,
at Intel. So I think it's fantastic, and it's not necessarily a super unusual way for folks to be brought into Intel. They
yeah.
really do a lot of work with their interns and building them up, networking them throughout the company. So it's great to see. I'm glad that it worked out for you too.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it worked out.
Sweet. So what was that intern experience like, that rotation especially? And do you have any advice for others on landing that first job or internship, especially at a massive corporation like Intel?
Yeah. The first like job was crazy to me. I mean, so I started doing the internship. It was my junior year of college. And I very quickly realized that the education that I was getting in college, and this is just a personal opinion because I never was good in school. I'll preface that. Like in school was never my strong suit. I don't learn well in a classroom. That going into Intel and working in the industry, I was like, wow, I don't know anything. And like, the very entry level things that you learn in a marketing class, like just are not really applying here. And I was just learning so much just by doing. And that's typically how I learn anyways, is by like actually doing something versus, reading about it or someone telling me about it. So that was like an eye-opening experience. I actually wrote a letter to my university saying, I think the title was "We Are Not Prepared," and it was talking about how I felt like our program wasn't like up to speed to teach kids to be ready for the industry. And then they ended up asking me to come back and teach adjunct after the fact to like prove it. So it was kind of funny. But
Hey.
yeah. um but yeah, like so that was kind of the feeling of the first job. It was great. It was really fun. But just kind of eye opening. But as far as like advice for getting a role, I think the biggest thing that again I got checked with was when I was asking for roles, because people are always interested, but it's trying to find as much experience where you can. It is really tough because most entry level jobs do say like 3 to 5 years or whatever, and it's always this daunting thing of how the question of how am I supposed to get entry level experience before going into an entry level job, right? And so I think trying to find any area in which you can get some experience, for me that was local businesses, trying to like help them with their marketing for free. It was working on student government at my university, and trying to get marketing experience there. Just trying to find any spaces. If I was starting all over today, knowing now what I know in gaming and like doing streaming and chatting with orgs, like I would be reaching out to like smaller orgs that are kind of up and coming and trying to get creators and do marketing there. Like there's tons of opportunity. I mean, all over the place there's opportunity for that. So to try and get some experience on your resume to say, yeah, like I worked for this small org or this team and did XYZ in marketing, to be able to put that on a resume, I think is super important. And then obviously like networking is a buzzword, but I think more than networking to try and find a job, the biggest thing that I always try and tell people is like networking to truly build a relationship and be a sponge and suck up information, because I had no idea what I wanted to do. I still feel like I don't even know what I want to do. But by like talking with people in the industry, you get an understanding of the types of roles that are out there. So that when you're asked like, what do you want to do? You have more of a baseline of here's what interests me, and a more of an understanding of like how an organization runs and where you feel like you might be able to fit in there. So I think a lot of that is networking, not necessarily for, hey, I'm hoping this person gives me a job, but like I want to get as much information from this person as possible to then go like fill in the gaps in my own, resume for what I think will fit there. So
Yeah,
like I
I
ranted for a while, but
totally.
that's my that's my thoughts.
No, no, I totally agree with your advice. And it's always better, right, when you have a genuine connection and relationship with someone, and then down the line a job opportunity comes up, you're going to be the first person that they think of. Um, or vice versa. If you reach out and you're a friend, that's always better rather than approaching it from a I need a job
Yeah.
perspective.
Well, I mean, that's the
Um,
thing. Like, you and I both know, I'm sure everybody that works in, like, we get emails all the time,
all the
Twitter
time.
DMs, whatever, of like, hey, I want a job, or hey, I'm looking for an internship. And I think so many of us have seen that. And I'll be honest, like, the majority of those that I get, like, I just don't feel like I have the time or the energy to respond to a lot of them, versus the ones that I have responded to have been the people that have reached out that there's this fine line of like, I feel like this person's trying to get a better understanding of the industry. Like I feel like I can help maybe mentor this person to be like, hey, here, let me answer some questions for you. And then that naturally is like, okay, they've already taken the first step, that if there is an opportunity, I feel like I've made a genuine connection with you. The connection isn't, loaded with I want a job. It's I want to get some information and establish a connection. And then, hopefully down the road that might turn into something. But yeah.
Totally agreed. And you said something earlier about reaching out to smaller orgs. And it even ties back to the email that you wrote to your alma mater, where you were upset about the course load.
I'm so
And I've
petty.
I've I've hosted quite a few of these Q and A's, and something that has come up a lot is showing your value to an org, especially when there is so much noise in everyone's DMs and everyone's inbox in on LinkedIn. If you can, as an individual, can reach out to a corporation and show them your value, what you would bring to the team, maybe what they're doing wrong and how you'd fix it, I think that's infinitely more valuable than just saying, "Hey, I'm Emily, hire me."
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like each person is unique and has unique skills, but it's very daunting to try and figure out how to show that. Like you're constantly just striving to like, I need the stage, right, to be able to show that. And so I think oftentimes that manifests into like sending a DM or an email of like, hey, again, the front loading being like, I want a job or I need an internship or whatever, versus like, hey, I just want to have a conversation. Like, I'm going to show you who I am and the value I add by like just meeting with you and talking about careers and life and whatever. Or leading with, hey, here's some of the work that I've done, kind of a thing, and letting that speak for itself. But I'm a big proponent of just like authentic, organic kind of relationship building leading into opportunity in the future, and not having it be like a loaded, hey, I'm gonna meet with this person to try and get that job, because it's very clear when that comes across, So yeah.
Exactly. Cool. We've got more questions for sure, so I'll keep it moving here.
Cool.
Um, excuse me, how would you recommend reaching out to other people in the esports industry for networking? And you touched on this a little bit, but any additional advice?
I think, yeah, I mean, I touched on it a little bit, but I think funny enough, so I ended up taking the opportunity to teach at my alma mater, and doing some
Nice.
classes there. Yeah. But I ended up turning that. So the class was sports slash esports marketing. And so we kind of talked about a number of different things, but one of the things that I really stressed with them half of the class was I showed them the letter that I wrote to the university saying like, hey, here's where I was at when I was in your position. I was kind of upset with where the education's at, and they kind of called my bluff and tried to bring me back in. But like, I wanted to teach them how to get a job. That was half the class. It was like, half we're going to learn this stuff, but the other half is like, I want to get you out of here. Like, I know that's what is on everyone's mind, is how do you get a job? And so I spent a lot of time talking about networking, the stuff that I had done in my own career. Some of the stuff that I'd done, I actually thought while I was at Intel that I wanted to be at Nike. Nike's right down the road from me in Beaverton, Oregon, and I thought that's where I wanted to be. And so I spent 2.5 years of networking at Nike. I had over 120 informational interviews at Nike. Not like, hey, I'm interviewing for a job, but I'm just reaching out and meeting someone and then asking them, okay, hey, that was a great meeting. Who, like, anyone else you think I should meet with, or do you know someone over here that you can introduce me with? And that truly was for me to like map this like spider web network within the walls of that company. One, to be able to have relationships so that when I'm having a conversation with someone, I could say, oh, you mean this person, or like have a frame of reference of the other teams that you can work on. And so that's kind of what I taught them, is how I did that. I mean, it was kind of interesting, but I was like, you look at most people's corporate email address, it's typically going to be like one of two patterns. Like, it'll be first name dot last name at X company, or first initial last name at X company. I was like, once you get one email, you now can send cold emails. Like, as much as that's kind of like an intimidating, like, you can send out an email and say, hey, here's who I am. I would love to get some more information. Boom. I did that a ton. And you send 20, you're going to get one response. That's just kind of how it goes. And so that's how I slowly mapped my way in. It was fun. At the end of that class, I had 5 people come up and say, like, I did that method and I have jobs. I was able to find jobs. So like, that's the biggest thing that I would say is just trying to, if there's a place that you want to work at, or an industry that you want to work at, trying to have as many conversations as possible, again, that are more trying to be like a sponge and soaking up information, is super helpful to understanding what you want to do and then finding opportunities. So yeah.
Yeah, that is excellent advice, and I'm sure that all of your students loved that class. It sounds like a really, really great course.
It was a good time.
Awesome. So for someone who is interested in working in marketing, what skills would you recommend they improve on to best prepare themselves for the role? This, I think, again, is really related to that course that you taught. So what did you not learn that you wish you learned? And what skills do you really need in today's environment that you might have to get elsewhere outside of a university course?
I mean, I think there's like stuff that I didn't learn in university course. Like, there's definitely some, like program type, things that you can learn. You can go on YouTube and learn some kind of hard skills of, how to do, social media content management or something, like trying to learn something like that, and running paid advertising on Google. Like, you can go get certifications and things like that to, beef up a resume. But I mean, personally, for me, the ways that I have found my ways into different jobs and roles and done well is just trying to be as personable as possible. Like, it's soft skills that I've really leaned on, especially like, I mean, there's so much of things that you kind of have to fake it till you make it and figure things out. Like, truly, there's so many
Yep.
people that like look buttoned up. I mean, someone made a comment how long my title is. My title looks kind of crazy, but it's like every day I walk into situations that I'm like, I need to fake this until I make it. There's things that I truly just don't have experience on that I'm gonna have to figure out. And so I end up leaning on my soft skills of like being very personable and having people skills to help get my way through that, asking the right questions, painting myself in a good light. So um I think that's some of the skills that I've leaned on, but I think it's really leaning on whatever your natural skill set is, like whatever makes you unique, whatever you think makes you stand out. But in general, I would say if it's hard skill stuff, like looking up, you can go Google search, you know, um, most popular, social media marketing programs or applications or whatever, and you can go get tons of certifications on those that looks great on a resume. Again, if you don't have a lot of experience, but you can say, hey, I've done XYZ, but I also am, Google AdWords certified. Yeah, stuff like that. So I think Google is a great ally. YouTube's a great ally in building some of that. And there's a lot of education you can do on your own that's outside of any classroom that could teach you. I'm pretty big on that. Again, I don't learn well in a classroom. So
Yeah, no, that was awesome advice. And it's something that I have started looking into recently. Like, hey, I should be beefing up my resume these days.
yeah, yeah,
So the fact that people can be just doing it throughout college, in addition to your course load, even dare I say high school. I don't know that that's really possible. Maybe if you're a senior, you're 18. Um, but there's so many things, like you said, that you could be just researching on your own and becoming proficient in on your own time. That'll beef
yeah,
up a resume. So thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
Sweet. Okay, our next question comes from Marcus, and he's asked, seeing how large companies and brands are investing themselves into the esports and gaming scene, how do you see that landscape evolving to appeal to a more general audience?
Hmm. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things that gaming. I mean, if everyone's here a gamer, like it's not new to us, right? Like we've been in gaming for a long time. We've always known the power of it, but it does seem like within the last you know 3 to 5 years, things have started to just really start to blow up, and people almost like taking a gaming like us as gamers more seriously of like, oh, like like this is an audience we should care about, right? So you're seeing
Yes,
all these other
exactly.
brands start to spend a lot of money trying to capture our attention. So it's interesting. Like there's companies that are very natural that fit, right, like that you start to see market to gamers. There's others that we can all pick out and be like, that does not make sense. You see those Twitch ads pop up or whatever, like what are they doing?
Yes.
I think a lot of those have turned into memes or on Reddit. But yeah, I mean, like in general, I think gaming's just becoming more and more mainstream. It is funny, like seeing more brands get in, but I think it's more interesting to see how much gaming has just crossed over to mainstream and how many athletes and musicians and like hip hop artists and whoever, country music stars, like everybody is now you're seeing them pop up on Twitch or playing gaming tournaments or tweet about it, put on their Instagram story. It's crazy. It wasn't like Khloe Kardashian the other day like put like Valorant on her Instagram story like out of nowhere. Like
I
it's
missed that.
it's everywhere. Like it's starting to like pop up in these places that
Yeah.
you normally wouldn't have seen it before. Like the stigma of who is a gamer is very much, going out of the window. But it's still a like an area that a lot of people don't understand. So I think one of the values of that is if you are a gamer and you live in this space, like there are so many jobs that I'm seeing pop up at like marketing agencies for some entry level jobs for like, a marketing specialist or something that crosses over to gaming that they're like truly looking for people who understand gaming. There's people that are in the industry of marketing that just have no concept and understanding. They may have played video games when they were a kid, but like they haven't lived this. And so I think that presents an opportunity for everyone watching and that has a love and a passion for gaming. Like there's a lot of opportunities out there now for just somebody that can understand that for the brands coming in, for agencies that are kind of helping them market. But yeah, hopefully that answered your question. If not, type you suck, I need another answer, and I'll try and help.
I do have like one eye on the chat in which somebody did confirm that she was playing Valorant. Crazy.
Yeah.
So yes, feel free to write things in the chat too. Um, but yeah, it's crazy, and I think the switch for me, or like when I really, if I could pinpoint a moment in recent history that changed the landscape of gaming forever is when Drake and Ninja
Ninja. Oh, it's
played.
huge.
Mhm.
That will go
Mhm.
down as one of the most defining moments in like gaming becoming mainstream. Like,
Exactly.
and yeah, as much crap as like, Ninja and Fortnite and all of these things get, like that was a truly defining moment. And
It was.
so many people being like, oh my God, like Drake and Travis Scott, and I forgot who else was playing with them. Like they're all playing right now. Like this is mind blowing. That stream had
Yeah.
like, I don't even know how many people watching at that time, but just crazy. Yeah. Like, and then now that's normal, right? Like, think
Yes.
about that 3 years ago about any hip hop artist that's mainstream jumping on and playing a game. Like, it just wasn't a thing. Like, and now it's all over the place. Like, you got all sorts of musicians, like I said, with their own streams, like on Twitch. Yeah, it's crazy how much it's changed in a very short period of time when gaming's been around for forever. But yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. My goodness. Well, I think you did answer Marcus's question, but of course, Marcus, let us know in the chat if we didn't answer. Our next question comes in from Tex, and they've asked, I just recently applied for the gaming events undergrad intern position at Intel. Hey, nice. Do you have any examples of past projects that this role would work on?
gaming events, undergrad intern post position. So I think from an events perspective, it's a lot of like that role will be a lot of just project management. So, there'll be like big events like a let's say a PAX or a TwitchCon or E3 or whatever that Intel's going to go have like probably a booth presence at. And so it's working, the job is probably working on like managing different marketing agencies that are doing production on site. So it's a lot of like there's just a lot of things running at once that you need to keep straight. Like that's typically what I see from like an event management perspective. And honestly, like even my job is just a lot of like shit flying everywhere and you got to try to like figure out how to organize it. So I think that's a lot of what that role would be. So I think as far as like a resume goes and how you build that up, like showing project management skills, showing, complex, teams that you've worked on and things you've had to manage from beginning to end to reporting on success, is probably going to be some of the things that you would need to show. But yeah, like a role like that's going to be all your large events like a PAX, TwitchCon, E3, stuff like that.
Maybe even some integration of Intel Gamer Days. You don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
You got to plug Gamer Days.
I did. I did. We love Intel Gamer Days here.
Yeah.
So speaking of Intel and days, what is your day to day like at Intel?
That was you're good at this. That was good.
Thank you.
Day to day. It's been crazy lately, not gonna lie. I think COVID has changed the day to day a lot. I think the normal what was 8 to 5 for me is now like 6:37 is the new 8 o'clock, and like 7 p.m. is the new 5 o'clock. Like days are just getting really long these days, and I think I'm very excited to get back to an office where 5 o'clock rolls around. I'll say I'll see you tomorrow. We'll solve that. We'll solve that crowd tomorrow. But no, day to day is my the three kind of areas that I cover is esports in the US, it's influencers, gaming influencers in the US, and then general gaming community. Then we have other folks on my team that are focused on more like the partner marketing side of things, or kind of overall just kind of gaming segment. But I get to focus on what I call the fun stuff. I get to do all the cool things that isn't necessarily always focused on selling product. It's more on like brand perception and sentiment and things like that. So yeah, day to day is a mix of those things. It's esports, working on some of our large tournaments with like ESL and Intel Extreme Masters, things like that. Like we have, IEM Dallas that's coming up in June. Like I'm right now working on the planning for that. What are we going to do on site for that? Then there's the lane of, okay, we have products launching, or we have some cool live streams we want to do. Like where do we pull in influencers? So it's the influencer strategy, and then it's signing and doing the whole contracting of net new influencers from all the way at the micro level, all the way up to kind of a mega level, like a Dr. Lupo or something. And then third lane is general gaming community. That's really the fun stuff where it's a lot of like testing and doing new cool things, like whether it's social giveaways or it's, working with, creating some new content for our YouTube that's again more around like fun stories and cool things that Intel's doing in the gaming community. And then net new like gaming events. Like we started a virtual gaming series called Master of Game that was like fully digital. You play the games you want at home on your PC, and it's like using Overwolf to track your progress and your time, and you can win, PCs and peripherals and things like that as you just engage and play. So coming up with stuff like that. So it is really like on paper, it's very fun. So that's kind of the day-to-day stuff that I do. But I wasn't joking in the sense that a lot of my time is like just people management, like just like not even like, hey, I have a team of management, like just managing relationships, trying to keep a lot of different work streams together at once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, it sounds like it can get crazy
Yeah.
on a day-to-day basis, and I'm
Great time.
sure it involves a lot of meetings, and
Yeah.
very little time to actually do the work, which is why your days are now extending from
That's
6:30
typically
to
why it is.
6:30.
It's your 8 to 5. Well, actually meetings start really early, but it's like the meetings will start like at 6:30 or something with some like global teams. But for the most of the day, it's just filled with meetings for, like I said, planning of events, meeting with, influencers or influencer agencies or whatever. And then there's these little windows of time that you actually get to do the work that you need to do. And sometimes that pushes into the evening or weekend. So yeah,
Yeah.
and I think COVID has magnified that big time. I used to have very natural lulls and breaks during the day, and those are gone. So yeah.
Yes, I can certainly understand that. Well, I want to remind everyone quickly how they can ask Josiah questions. So we are pulling questions from our TSMU Discord. So if you have a question for Josiah, please head to discord.gg/TSMU and ask your question in the Q&A questions channel. Cool. But while we wait for even more questions to come in, don't you worry, I've got tons to ask you. So, are there any particular campaigns or projects you've worked on in your career that you're especially proud of?
Hmm. I think one of the ones like more recently, we've been doing a lot of work at like the middle school, high school level, where we've been going into like high schools, middle schools, and surprising them with like esports labs.
Oh, cool.
That's been really, really cool and rewarding because I mean, one, it's cool that we're giving them new tech and like the kids love that, the schools love that for sure. But mainly it's going in and like we did this in Atlanta in November of this last year. We actually just posted a video, I think, on our YouTube about it. We surprised a middle school and a high school with brand new esports labs. And then we spent 2 days on site building the lab. And then one day was just like meeting with students and faculty and teachers. And so like I got to sit up in front of, the whole school and like answer questions about gaming and same, as this, like where it's like careers in gaming, but it's for a lot of these kids that, like I said, are at like even a middle school level that have this love and this passion, this desire for gaming. That's what they do when they get home. And parents sitting in the back, teachers sitting in the back, talking about the importance of bringing that into a classroom setting and how that's actually not a distraction. That it can actually be something very powerful of learning life skills and communication and teamwork and all sorts of things. And so that was really eye opening. And even talking to them about like again the parents who are either very happy about their kids playing games or very not happy about their kids playing games and trying to channel some of that into a positive thing of like, no, this is something that your kid can actually turn into a career. And I'm not talking about being the next ninja, right? Like, sure, you can go down that lane and try and be a content creator, but look at all these different jobs. If they're interested in gaming, like it could be on the hardware side, they could be an engineer, they could work on coding, they could do, we talked about storytelling, they could be a storyteller or an artist that works for a game dev, right? Like that's needed. There's marketing, there's sales, like all of this within gaming, and gaming's larger than what is it, North America sports, the music and film industry
Film
combined.
industries, yeah.
Like, that's
It's
insane.
insane.
I told
Yeah.
that stat to people and their eyes are just like, what? Like, how many people go into careers there and it's normal? But now we're talking about one industry that overtakes all of those. So it's really
Yeah.
eye opening. Anyway, I was kind of ranting on it, but that's been very cool. I've been able to do like 3 different activations like that. We did a road show. Where we had a team with our partner high school esports league where they like rented an RV and drove all across the US and, delivered PCs to schools. And we got to like surprise them and again do the same thing. So that's been some of the most rewarding work that I've been able to do. I mean, I've done some really cool stuff that me as just a fan of gaming has been into, but that's something that like truly giving back, hopefully changing some lives, one with the tech, but then just an eye opening of, hey, this is a lane that you can have a career in. You can turn that passion into, because again, like I had no idea that I could have a career in gaming. I loved gaming. I spent so much time not focusing on homework and playing video games that I thought that would never be a thing. And I
Yeah.
remember when my first check that I got from Twitch when I did live streaming is framed
Hey.
right where it's at right there. And I sent that to my parents afterwards as like, aha, see, I could do like, you can make money in gaming. It was a very funny, like, you can do it. So I have
That's
that there
awesome.
because it's just kind of like it's a funny memory. But yeah.
I love that. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I've got to hear more separately about this middle school program.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really great. Well, what are some of the more important lessons that you've learned in your career that you can share?
Mm, I think I still go through this a lot. Like, as much as it's important to find a job that you like, it's just as equally important to find the things that you don't like. And I've spent some time in jobs that I truly hated, like, and did not enjoy. And so I think, honestly, even within the walls of Intel, just because I didn't have a passion for it, like I worked on our data center side of the business and I working on like artificial intelligence. I just don't wake up and care about, artificial intelligence and servers and things like that. So like even within a company that I've, found a lot of love for and worked for a while, like there's jobs that I have truly not enjoyed. And I think that's been super important for me to kind of be okay with, is trying to find the things that just as is, like I said, just as important as finding the job that you enjoy is finding the one that you don't. I think that's been a big learning. Again, I think being comfortable that you're not going to know everything because everyone looks so buttoned up from the outside, but everyone is still trying to fake it till they make it and just figure shit out. So I think being comfortable with being uncomfortable is really important in like learning new roles or jobs or skills or just saying screw it and going for it. Like I think that's a big one that I've had to kind of push myself into,
Yeah,
of knowing that everyone has been at this point and trying to figure stuff out. So yeah.
exactly. And surprisingly, a lot of massive corporations, especially for roles in gaming, don't have like a very formal onboarding. Like you will learn this thing and then you'll be able to do this thing and I'll teach you this and then you do that. It is most times just you go learn by doing like you
Like
said.
here's the resume, but your job is actually not anywhere on that. It's going to be very different. Yeah.
Right. Yes, exactly. So
Yeah.
it really is a matter of just saying goodbye to that imposter syndrome
Yeah.
and just embracing that everybody's out here just trying to figure their jobs out at the same time. Um
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of like back to some of just the soft skills, to have is just
yeah.
to be able to roll with the punches, right? Like sure you need to be able to get to the point of like an interview or whatever showing some experience, but when you get into a job, it's just like I need to learn and fail very fast. Like you're just constantly failing as fast as you can and learning what's going to work and what's not and just rolling with the punches and going because that's what it is. Like just learning as you go. Every day I am learning as I go. I do not know what I'm doing. I'm just figuring it out. So,
Precisely. Oh, awesome. Great advice. Thank you. Next one, how do you stay organized? What organizational programs, tools, or processes do you use, and any advice on how to use them?
I am so disorganized. My office looks great and it looks organized, but I
It
am not
does.
organized. So I started just having like a to-do list. Like that's how because I get so many emails and things in my inbox, and I'm like, my attention span is very much like I'll get an email, I'll see something, I'll be in another meeting, like, okay, oh, I need to do that thing. Okay, I'll get to that thing. If I don't write it down, it is gone from my memory and it will hit me again in 3 days when that person's like, hey, where's that thing? And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't do it. So
Yep.
this is what works for me is just writing things down. And as funny as it is, I have to be so diligent to do that because my natural instinct is just to see it and be like, yeah, I'll get to that. But if I don't write it down, I'm screwed. So that's how I have to do it. I've tried to do like digital application to-do list stuff. I just handwriting, it gets in my brain if I write it down. So yeah.
I can't lie. I use the exact same method.
Yep. Yep.
Exact same. Yeah, you just gotta write down your to-dos and then everything's fine. Um, what has been your favorite memory that you made while working in esports and gaming, and why is it so special to you?
Um, I mean, honestly, like I kind of joked about the whole like check thing from Twitch, but having nothing to do with Intel, like that's been some of the most fun. I actually started doing live streaming on Twitch before I worked in gaming at Intel, because I was working on the data center side of our business, and I was like, I need something like an outlet that I enjoy, and so I started doing live streaming. But that's been some of the most fun memories that I've had of gaming is just the communities that have been built on Twitch. I spent a lot of time playing Apex, so that's kind of like my family is the creators and the viewers over there. So that's been some of the more fun memories. Again, like just having a check finally come in for playing video games was just mind blowing to me, and it was so like I literally have it framed, guys. Like it's a thing. Like it was crazy to me. So that's been some of the most fun. And then now turning that into either meeting up with people like a TwitchCon or now with my work, like a lot of my friends that I've made through streaming, I am now have a relationship with them at Intel where I'm now like sponsoring them or doing activations, and I'm like reaching out or texting them like, hey, do you want to do this thing? Like, we're going to do a paid activation with you. Like that's been really fun to see that whole community go full circle for me where I was able to kind of establish that before. And then now that I'm working in it, like gaming's a very small world. We found that out today, Emily. Like
Yes,
we
yes, you
like
did.
it's a very small world, and it's been fun to kind of connect the dots there. So that's been some of the more fun memories is that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Any event specific memories that have been over and above?
TwitchCon 2019 for me was huge. That was
Great
so much
event.
fun. That was the first time that I got to meet a lot of like my community face to face. It sucks that we haven't had one since.
I
Fingers
know.
crossed for this year, right? But that very much just going out to dinners, like staying in hotels or hostels or whatever, like right there outside of San Diego. Renting the scooters and riding around town at like 2 a.m. like that those are memories that I will never forget, and people that instantly like they were already a part of like my family before, but then you meet them face to face and give them a hug. It's like they will be my family forever. Like it's such a cool moment. So TwitchCon 2019, that was the thing for me.
Nice, nice. Okay, well, speaking of your favorite memories and Twitch and TwitchCon, do you want to plug your Twitch in this
No.
format quickly? No? Okay.
No. I mean, like if you want to check it out, I streamed last night for the first time in like 5 months. My stream has definitely been lacking as of late, but it is fun like to turn stream back on and still have like 20, 30 people show up from my old community is really cool, and
Yeah.
like to connect with people again, people that I literally have like some of my oldest viewers in my stream who've like been subbed to me now for like 3 years or something. Like I have their family Christmas cards on my fridge. Like there's like it's this like family that truly got built. But yeah, like my Twitch is there. It's in the chat. It's my using TwitchCon 19 badge right there in the chat.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't really stream that regularly anymore. But there it is.
All right, everyone go follow Nuz. You said it's Nuzman.
Nuzman.
Is the
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, this next question is really good. I think it's particularly good because of the amount of emails and DMs that end up in our inboxes. So, for collegiate leaders out there looking for sponsors for their clubs, programs, and events, what advice would you give to those approaching brands for sponsorship?
Yeah, I think it's like again trying to break away from the noise a bit as much as you can. I'll be honest, I haven't seen very many do it well and like reaching out to me. Like again, it's a lot of times like, hey, the leading thing is, hey, we need money. Like we need a sponsor. And oftentimes like it's not the way that I like, want to start the conversation. I want to like, hey, here's what we're doing. We'd love to have you be a part of it, whatever. So I think just trying as much as you can to establish again like a very genuine connection with somebody. At the corporate side of the house of just like, hey, I am a leader on this esports and edu kind of team or club or whatever. Like, I would love to chat with you, or hey, maybe I would love for you to come in and speak to our club, right, about careers, whatever. Like, make a connection there, that's outside of just, hey, we're looking for a sponsorship. Now, look, that may work sometimes, but I'm just saying from my personal experience, there's a lot of white noise when it comes to sponsorships and teams and schools and all of that. So trying to break away and just do something a little bit different, I think my biggest recommendation there, or trying to find a job, is always going to be broken record, but establishing a personal kind of connection first. As much as you can try and do that without it feeling loaded, I think is a solid first step to make. Probably not the best answer, but that's the one I'm going to give.
No, I totally agree. And if I can even expand upon it from my perspective, um, I feel as though collegiate esports leaders really need to think about, corporations' priorities as well, and that we need to be seeing that connection at your school and almost thinking about like what benefit, excuse me, does your esports club bring to this corporation? We want to make sure that any relationships are two-sided.
Hmm.
It should really be a give and take. And so I think approaching from a partnership perspective as opposed to a sponsorship perspective um, is maybe a nice way to approach as well. Of course, in addition to building that genuine connection.
Yeah. No, I think that's spot on. And again, like like you said, knowing what a corporation wants probably out of this relationship, but also knowing yourself, knowing your team or the group that you're in, like what the strengths are there. Because if a company's like primary goal is trying to sell something, right? And you have a very small school or a very small audience tuning into your streams, like that's probably not the value prop, right, to lead with of like, hey, we feel like we're going to be able to drive sales for you because like again, these big corporations have very large sales engines that are probably doing something else for them that's going to be better. But again, that partnership of like, hey, like we'd love to do something really cool with you, and like, I mean, I'll tell you one of the things that we do with a lot of our esports and education stuff. Like, I'm not going into those schools trying to drive sales. Like, I'm trying to do these programs because I think they're really cool and really valuable. But like to sell it into Intel, like there has to be an emotional connection there. Like, hey, this is going to go show how Intel's making some really cool investments at the grassroots level within esports, right? So it's like what I end up doing is I go do that activation, I film it, I capture it, I package it up, and I put it on YouTube or I put it on our socials so that it gets scale. Like more people can get eyeballs on that, and you see it and go, wow, Intel's doing some really cool things, right? The impact isn't just there what's at the school; it's much bigger than that. So even that is something where it's like, hey, like we would love to work with you on this. Like we can even capture content for you and give it back to you. Like there's some value exchange there. That yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head on that one.
I think you did too. Awesome. And we've got like 12 minutes and numerous more questions, so I'm going to keep us going here. So this next one is a big one. Have you experienced burnout and how did you overcome that? Do you have any advice for everyone on how to prevent it or overcome it?
Yes. Um,
I had a feeling.
Very much so. It's tough, man. Like I've gone through so many different phases of burnout. And it's always different. Sometimes it's with the job itself, like I said in previous roles. Sometimes it's with I mean, I'll be honest, like working at Intel, that's a very large corporate engine. It's a matrix of we have 100,000 plus employees. Like there's a lot that goes into this kind of corporation. So like sometimes that can wear you down, just like the stresses of a large corporation. There can be management stuff that wears you down. I think the way that I've tried to find, and I've even found this within like Twitch. When I was streaming on Twitch, I was playing Apex. When I was streaming consistently, I was streaming like 3 to 4 days a week for like 6 hours after work, like, 4 days a week. Like I got burnout pretty quick on the game, on streaming, whatever. I got burnout at work. The way I do it is trying to find other things that that kind of distract me and can give me passion. Like I said, I just started trying to do woodworking because I still love gaming. That's still probably my biggest passion. But I sit in this desk from 6:30 a.m. until 6 or 7 at night working. The last thing I want to do at the end of the day is continue to sit here and play games until it's time to go to bed and wake up and come right back to the same desk again. So it's like I've had to try and like just get myself out of this space and go work with my hands. Like that's how I've tried to get out of burnout with work or whatever, is finding something to take my mind off it. And sometimes it might be an actual job change. Like maybe that's the solution. Sometimes it's just I need something else that's gonna fulfill me. So yeah, I definitely experience burnout all the time. Probably experienced some today, some last week. Like it happens. It's someone's lying if they say they don't experience burnout, even in great jobs. Like I'll say that my job is great on paper, but sometimes there's days where I'm like, this sucks. Like that's just it's how it goes. There's that with every single job. So
Totally, totally. There's crappy parts to every single
yeah,
job.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that tip. I like the woodworking tip and being able to work with your hands. I think that's awesome. And
yeah,
you'll have to show me separately some of your
yeah,
latest projects.
yeah.
Cool. So, how do you personally stay on top of gaming and esports trends?
Trying to like keep up on Twitter. Twitter's probably the thing that I stick
Yeah.
with the most. So, even when I was like doing streaming, that's kind of was my main platform to like get content out, was actually Twitter. So Twitter's what I probably keep up with the most. And then I always have a stream pulled up throughout the workday, just somewhere in a corner, whether or not I'm listening to it or not. So that's probably how I try and keep up with it the most. Sometimes Reddit as well, but I think Twitter's where I found like the majority of my community is there. It's a great place to network as well.
Yeah.
If you know how to use it, it's a solid place to make connections. So yeah, that's where I keep most up to date.
Nice. Nice. Twitter is always a great place.
TikTok too. I'm like I get too
Uh,
many hours spent scrolling on there.
yes, exactly. The trends for sure
Oh
are
yeah,
emerging on TikTok.
yes.
Awesome. Well, this is one of our last questions here, and Sam Stepp has asked, "What was the hardest project you worked on, and how did you overcome some of the challenges that came with it?"
Oh, working with Emily when she was at Lenovo, that was always
Ah,
tough.
thanks, guys. That was
um,
it.
yeah. um, Hardest project. The first one that comes to mind is actually not gaming related. It was when I was on kind of our sports group. Again, very cool job. I was basically like we had some for short explanation. We had like VR cameras for live sports, where you could basically like sit courtside kind of a thing. And so we were working with like the NBA, the NFL, La Liga, the Olympics, all these different very high tier established sports organizations, to bring that to life. And so I was very different job. I was focused on how do you advertise in VR or in like volumetric video. And so it was like working with a lot of brands like Coca-Cola or Budweiser or whoever, of like what is advertise what is the polar bear experience that you normally see on a screen look like in VR for a halftime ad kind of a thing. So I got to work on some of that, and that was very cool, but it was definitely the most stressful job that I've ever had in my life. Like it was very demanding, lots of different partners that I'll be honest, are not easy to work with. They're just, again, big corporate engines, and you're a big corporate engine trying to get things done. It can move very slow. And the fear of not feeling like I know what I'm doing. Again, I'm going and speaking with people at, organizations that are very established, and I'm intimidated by. I think I was 24 at the time of having that job. Like I had no idea what I was doing. Fake it till you make it all the way. And so I think that's some of the bigger challenges that I had, was just trying to overcome the fear of not knowing what I'm doing and just trying, again, failing fast and figuring it out, asking the right questions. So that's probably one of them. I'm sure I could come up with others, but that's the first one that came to mind. That was very much the most stressful job I've ever had. So it was great. It was very cool. Again, awesome on paper, stressful.
Yes, and I love your failing fast advice. I think that's awesome because everyone forgives mistakes in the beginning and the first time. And then if they continue down the line, then
Gotta
it's,
figure that one out. But hey,
yeah. Well, we're almost at time here, but I have one more question for you.
Sure.
You mentioned some pretty cool brands. So, what is one of or a few of the coolest brands that you've gotten the opportunity to work with throughout your career, and what'd you do with them?
Um, the sports ones were very cool. Again, this was at a time when I was like, yeah, I'm gonna work at Nike. So like I had this high, astute value on, working with the NFL or the NBA or whatever. So those were big. I think getting to work again, that same role, getting to work with some really cool brands that typically sponsor, sports related activities, got some really cool insight and access. Another one that I got to do early on was do some work with like we did some work with Lady Gaga. It was one of my first kind of roles. It was very different, but again, we were doing some unique like technology showcase for some of her performances, and that was really different and cool. And again, to get exposure to that, or like I think the X Games was another one that I got to work on very early, just early on in my career. I was just like eye open, stunned. I got to work with like LeBron James and Serena Williams, and like at the time I was very much into hip hop, so Metro Boomin, if you guys know who that is, like I was all in on getting to work with some of them as who are influencers but are brands within themselves. Like I was so starstruck and to work on those projects. So yeah, I've had the opportunity to work on some really cool things even outside of gaming. Obviously gaming I get to work with really cool brands too. But TSMU, huge, Lenovo,
Huge.
Logitech, those are definitely my favorites. So if I had to do a top one list, it's going to be those, all those combined. That's definitely my
That's the
definitely
right
my favorite.
answer.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, I'm about to give our outro here, but any final words of wisdom, Josiah? It's been awesome talking to you.
No, thank you guys for the opportunity. I'll open the floodgates and say if anyone has more questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. I will try as much as I can to get to them. But I truly I do have a passion for this. Like I said, I went back and taught a class even at university on this. Like I would love to help answer some questions. Yes, spam Josiah. He said it's okay. Thanks, Kirsten.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, seriously. Thanks for the opportunity. Hopefully it helped a little bit.
Yes, thank you so much for being our guest this evening. It was awesome talking to you. Thank you guys so much for watching. There will be another episode next Wednesday, February 16th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. So please be sure to follow the channel so that you know when we're live. Please be sure that you join the Discord. It is discord.gg/TSMU. So, Josiah, that's all I got. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Of course. Thanks, guys.